Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I open the Tiverton School Committee meeting. Please rise and join the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item is a consent agenda, which consists only of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Yes, I'd like to pull all three of the regular minutes for corrections or additions. It's from 419, 427, and 504.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So, if there are no other comments, maybe we can approve all the executive session meetings. All in favor? All set.
I think I missed something. Who motioned the executive minutes?
No one.
Oh, no, we're just going to deal with the corrections and additions of the regular first, right?
I'm off today. Yeah, we can do that.
I think we had a motion without a second for the executive.
Sally
Well, I
seconded.
got,
Yeah.
Sally
No,
seconded
Sally
the additions and corrections, and the vote was 4-0?
Yep. No addition and corrections, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The regular session minutes for April 19th
Yep.
should read that the board voted to send a proposal to NEA, not two.
We did
You
send,
sent
The
two.
prior week, we had sent
no, the
one.
19th, the beginning of that meeting,
Yeah,
we sent a proposal, and then we worked on a second, which was approved but went out the next day.
At that meeting, we weren't, that wasn't a week after,
This was our vacation week.
the 19th, right?
Right.
And at that point, we had put out a proposal
We had
and we
given-
had waited a week and
No,
not
we
heard something
we had
back.
given one at the beginning of that night and did not hear back, so because I remember I typed it. Committee asked me to type another proposal, but since the other side had left for the evening, we had to submit it
Okay,
the
all
other
right.
night.
so is that?
So I
what
stand
stand?
corrected,
This stands.
excuse me.
Okay, that's okay.
And I only remember because
Too many long evenings.
yeah, they blur.
There's one small little
Okay.
typo.
Want to direct me?
Yep, a motion was made by Black Herman to move.
Not moving.
Yeah, it's moving just a little.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
For the April 27th regular session, I just wondered if we shouldn't include the names of the retirements.
Yes, we should.
That would be good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then on the May 4th minutes, under number 1, the vote was to recess, to attend the town council meeting was 3 in favor, 2 opposed.
Correct.
That's right.
Just the number
Coulter
is-
Gandhi, correct?
Yeah, just the number
Yes,
is
the 4
incorrect.
needs to be changed to 3.
Yep,
3 to, right,
3 to 2.
right.
and then the 1 through 2.
No, it is 2. You have 2. You had just 4 in
Just
favor,
five
2
opposed.
opposed.
3.
And there's only 5 votes.
You're under number 1.
Okay.
Number
I'm
one on
going
May
down.
fourth.
A
Okay.
motion was made.
All right, got it.
Got it.
Okay.
That was it.
All right, so now is a motion to approve the minutes for executive, for regular sessions as amended.
Make the motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay, have it.
To the retirements.
All in favor?
April 22nd. And
All set.
19th.
We are done with consent agenda, moving to old business. First, obviously, budget.
Yes, as everyone's aware, we had our financial town meeting, the first one, this past Saturday, with no action being taken on either our budget or the town's budget. We are to begin again this Saturday, the 15th at 9 a.m. here in the high school gymnasium. And I believe the order of sequence will be to take up the last amendment, which was taken from the floor, which was proposed, I believe, by Mrs. Polish, for $20,879,030. Is that accurate? I rounded up to $100,000. As far as our budget goes, there are a few changes due to retirements that we have not adjusted for, and I'd like to go over those first with you. First of all, we've taken action on two of these. First of all, actually action on the first one, excuse me. We had already accepted the retirement of our third teacher, Mrs. Mello, at one of our previous meetings, but we have not yet accounted for it in our accounting. And when we replace her with the teacher who's next in line for the position, we would save $32,575. We also, since our last meeting, I'm pleased to announce that Council 94 agreed to waive their 2% salary concessions for next year.
So increases.
The salary increases, excuse me, for next year, which represents a 2% increase, which saves the town or the school department $35,323. We also approved the administrator's contract for 2 years this past Saturday, which again, I'm pleased to announce that our administrators were willing to recognize the problems that we're faced with financially, as well as Council 94 did as well. Their first year of the contract saves the district $39,134. Those three adjustments bring our number to $215,204 over the cap.
Maybe you can also mention that how many administrators do we have who contributed to almost $40,000 in savings?
We have eight.
8, so which is $5,000 per person.
For each of the 2 years. So
Right.
it's a total of almost 10.
So at this point, we have budgeted a 0% salary increase for our teachers, for our administrators, and for our support staff,
And for Mr. Fiore, that's correct.
for everyone.
Everyone
but-
is, there are no salary increases. What you see in our budget proposal that we submitted back in February, there's a, I believe it's 3.8% in the salary line item. But as we talked about, that was to account for a teacher who was, 2 teachers that were formerly in grants, a special ed teacher that we had to hire, a teacher assistant that we had to hire, lane adjustments and step adjustments that we have to pay those teachers. And we only have about 40 of them out of our 180 teachers that are on steps. That accounts for that increase of it's actually now under $500,000. That salary line increase, because you have to account for the new people.
Right.
But there are no salary increases. It represents people we had to bring on. But no one, as you said, Mrs. Herman, is getting a salary increase next year.
So the misinformation that's being stated about our teachers are getting a 3.8% salary increase, that's completely false.
And Mrs. Black has asked, and I submitted to her today, just prior to the meeting, I'm sure she hasn't had time to go through it, but when you look at overall salaries, based on information that we're able to get from the Rhode Island School Committees Association, our teachers, our administrators, myself, Mr. Fiore, Ms. Santa, our building principals are, if we're not at the bottom, we're pretty close to the bottom of the salaries schedules that we were able to obtain. So I know there's been some inferences that we have the highest paid employees in the state or in the region. That's simply not true.
No.
And that's evident by that data. And just going back to our budget correction, if I may, we also had to account for the ARA money, which we originally had counted as part of the 4.5% of our base. We had to take that out because of the commissioner's ruling. So we had to put another $24,324 that we have to now be accountable for. So currently, we're $239,328, $528, over the 4.5% cap.
Over the cap.
So when we're going to the meeting, and when Mr. Burgundy gave the number, if it was approved, we, the committee, myself, Mr. Fiore, we would still have to reduce our budget by $239,000 just to get to that number.
To get to that number.
But we're confident we can do that without cutting programs, correct?
Yes, if the number stays at that number, we'll be able to get by about program reductions. So these are the adjustments, just to bring you up to date as to where we are. The other items here still stand if we don't get our number. And I'd like to just explain our number once again for people. I know there's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of letters being sent to the editor saying the school department's, our proposal or Ms. Polish's proposal is up to 22% of a tax increase. That's simply not accurate. I'd like to first call the committee's attention a letter that was just submitted, and some people may not have read it yet because it was online, by the tax assessor, Mr. Dave Robert, and in his letter, he specifically states that our increase that we're proposing is 2.89%, not 22%.
And if everyone remembers at the town meeting, that's exactly what I said when I held up docket to docket. And I said that it was 2.9, I rounded it off, and
to make it so people can understand, our numbers that we're asking from local taxation is $20,979,030. That's 4.5% more than what we had last year. You then take our state aid number, which we've spent meetings on. We had the commissioner's ruling that you have to put that number together to be approved at the town meeting. But that total number of 25,620,772 that Mr. Burgundy put forward is not what people are being taxed on. They're being taxed on the $20,979,030, and it's important to note that.
Yeah, I think this.
And that's what Mr. Roberts says in his letter. He makes it clear in his letter that that's how we calculate it is the accurate way, and it's a 2.89% increase, not 22%. And folks need to understand that.
Well, the whole spin was 20% was that this is a difference between what budget committee proposed and what we proposed, but budget committee did not add to the appropriation the state and federal money. So that's $5 million, close to $5 million, am I right? Or 4 point something. So that's supposedly the 20% which we asked for. I think that's.
It's simply not.
It's not the case.
And I don't know how else, how clearer we can make that point. We also had, for folks to read, we also had a handout that explained how you do the calculations. Mr. Burgundy has written a letter that's been submitted to the Seconic Times explaining the calculation, just what I went over with everybody. So again, we're trying to clarify for folks what our number represents, what it means, and if the committee has any other questions, I'll be happy to entertain any.
I just want to clarify a little bit more, because I know there are a lot of numbers out there and they get confusing. As the tax assessor wrote, our total budget has increased by 2.89% from last year. But because our state aid has been cut, the increase from local sources or from the town is 4.5%. Okay.
And just to go along with that, everybody sees my Rhode Island is Ready sticker on. I spent the day at the State House, and Rhode Island Ready is that ready for funding formula, which we all know we're the only state that doesn't have one. And that's a shame, first of all. So I went up there to testify today, because if we don't have a seat at the table, they say you'll get eaten for lunch. Because we're a small community, and all the big cities and towns are up there, and they're going to vote on a funding formula. And some of them cut us a lot, some of them it's in the middle, it's back and forth. But they were all there today. Constantino and all of them were there, and I stood up and testified for Tiverton. And I also explained that the people in Tiverton have always been supportive of education. They voted for a $30 million school bond. We have 3 beautiful elementary schools, and we only get 30% from the state. They were pretty surprised, some of them, because some of them get 80%, 50%, Fall River gets 90%. So they were kind of surprised. Massachusetts pays 46% of their education from the state. In Tiverton, it's 80% from the taxpayers and the teens from the state and 4% from the federal government. I also talked about going through the Constitution of the United States, hoping I'd find the word education. Of course you won't, because it's a state's right. But I said, but when they passed No Child Left Behind, a 600-page book of mandates, and didn't fund it, they put their nose into it, and they have to come forward too. So it's really from the top down. When they don't fund us, it's on our backs, and it can't be any longer from everybody from Tiverton funding that bill. So I hope it has some impact. They said it did when I was up there, and just to hear the situation we're in and how good the people of Tiverton have been for education. So I think anyone that cares about this, the Tiverton and the situation we're in should go up to the State House and talk to them about it, because the more they hear from us, they said they get 5 or 10 phone calls and they really start thinking about it, you know, so.
Mrs. Black, as great as we go over there, the reality is, and it's phenomenal that you always take time to go over and talk to them, and I join you whenever I can, and so do many other members of the school committee. It has to be understood that no matter which funding formula is going to be adopted, we are going to be on the losing side, unless they invent something which is not on the table yet. As actually as the rights formula is the most favorable to us, correct, out of all of those.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no matter what happens, we are going to be on the losing side. Two, no matter how much we talk to them, there's no money at the state level. So no matter what we do and how much we beg, the state is not going to print new money, and because of that, they are going to be shifting the responsibility for paying the bills to local communities. And as Mrs. Black, as you remember, we always hear there's plenty of money, it just has to be allocated differently. Even the commissioner says that, correct?
Right,
Where is that money?
But my point of going up there, and my point of saying this is at
I
least
know.
it'll be predictable. We'll be able to go
Sure,
to the town
sure.
and say, this is the number we're getting from the state, and this is what we need from you. And that's what the townspeople need. They're very nervous that if we ask for 20 million and the state doesn't come through with their part, that the taxpayers in town are gonna have to pay for it. That's the phone calls I'm
I'm
getting.
not saying that this was,
You know.
I agree with you on that point, but the
Right.
point that there's no additional money coming, this has to be also clearly understood, because we might think that if we go over there and we argue, we can actually get more money from the state, but there's, from whatever we hear, there's no money at the
Right.
state level, and every time they speak, they say there's plenty of money at the local levels because we were reducing, and on local levels, there was no increase in beyond some small percentage in terms of tax burden. And there's no hope for the next couple or 3 years at least in terms of
Can
getting some rescue.
Can we
from
bring
the
it
state.
back? Just, all right, I think Carol has some other points
Right, I
regarding the number
think
now.
the state aid number and what's
Yeah,
going to
we'll
happen
have it
down the
first.
road is really not of immediate concern to us right now. I know people are concerned about the state aid number that we've come up with for next year.
Right.
And I'd like to point out that just last week, the Budget Committee Chairman Jeff Karen and his followers were saying that our projected state aid number, which is approximately 4.6 million, was much too low. Last week they claimed it was too low. They said Tiverton schools would be receiving almost 5.3 million, and that our lowballing it was an attempt to hide revenue. And now, a few days later, Mr. Karen and his followers are claiming that our projected state aid number is much too high, that Tiverton will receive absolutely nothing in state aid, $0, and that therefore our budget request represents a 22% increase. But both of these contradictory positions are unsupported by the facts. Where do we get our projected state aid number? It's a responsible estimate based on the most recent and reliable information available from both the General Assembly and the Commissioner of Education. Our number represents a 3.8% decrease in state aid to education over last year and comes from the governor's proposed budget. And this is the way the school committee has built and prepared its budget request for at least the last 20 years. And the schools have never once come back to the town and asked for more money because state aid fell short. Never. So please do not be misled by those who spread misinformation to achieve their own political agenda. We have a conservative estimate of state aid. It is based on what the governor told us to budget. It is based on what the Commissioner of Education has told us to budget. It's 4.6 million. And to pretend that we're going to get $0 from the state and have to make that up from local taxes is ludicrous.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Glenn.
I'd like to ring in on this. When the law was passed to reduce real estate taxes, the Teresa Piper Wade Act, which was the Senate Bill 3050, it was for the towns at the time in total. There's been another bill passed for schools at 16-something. The school department is obligated to have its budget 4.5% increase or under. There's 5 motions on the floor at the financial town meeting. All 5 of them are under 4.5%, correct?
That's correct.
So we are not violating the law. We are not asking for more than the law says.
No, we're not asking for what the law says, just by pure calculation, but you can't be going over the cap before any number's been voted on. Nothing has been voted on yet, and to claim you're going over the cap, how can you go over the cap when there's no number in play yet?
Any one of those 5 numbers would be voted on.
Now, keep in
We'd
mind,
be under the
but
cap.
there's only 3 amendments that can be voted on, and I believe a couple of them were put together. There's 3 that are in play. There's Ms. Polishes, which would be voted on first.
Yes.
In reverse order. I believe Mr. Nelson would be second, Mr. Martin
Third.
would be third.
Beyond would be 4th.
And then they would go to ours,
School committee would
and
be
then,
5th.
you're right, there's 5
And the
total.
budget would be
3 from the,
5th.
3 from the
If
floor.
none of those pass.
3 amendments.
Now, the question that I think the committee needs to ask, or at least maybe you're not ready to, but
Don't go away, Deborah.
does the committee support, would the committee support Mrs. Polish's amendment?
I am one that will support Mrs. Polish's amendment because it's the first one out and it's the one we should vote on.
Yeah.
I just think the committee needs to let
Right.
people know where you stand going into Saturday's meeting, so there's no ambiguity.
And her amendment is less than 4.5.
It's
Right, we're at 4.5, the
It's
reduction.
a $100,000 reduction
reduction.
below the 4.5
That's correct.
and below what we had asked for. But I think that in the interest of compromise and of simplicity and of actually getting to the point of voting on a school budget, which people were denied the opportunity to do on Saturday, that we would favor approving the Polish amendment.
And that's the first one that will be voted on.
That's
Right.
correct.
I'll make sure that I remind everyone that we support, we don't have to take any votes, but we can.
Well, I think people need to know where
Maybe
the
we should-
committee's gonna, because they're gonna be looking to you.
That's what that's
Just-
true, so
you're on
then maybe
podium.
we should take a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you will need to represent the committee's position when you
Yeah.
speak. I make a motion that we support passage of the Polish Amendment on Saturday at the continuation of the financial town meeting.
Second.
Okay.
Could I hear from Mrs. DiMaderis?
She's not paying attention.
Mrs. DiMaderis,
They want your opinion.
what do you?
That's okay.
She's busy right now.
Oh, all right, okay, go ahead.
Anyone has any discussion, any comments?
She's discussing this, so.
Okay. All right.
No, what? You want my opinion?
Sally, trying to get your attention.
Not really, but
Sally wants to put you on the spot.
This could only backfire you on one way, because we did this once before. They're gonna say that you really never needed that $100,000, and that was a play. So just be very, very careful. Know why you don't need that $100,000.
Right.
Know where that $100,000 is gonna go.
Exactly.
Because if you just say,
Right.
you agree with Deb, then you're saying that you really did need $100,000 less. And that's happened before. Someone on the floor is going to point that, well, now they will. But someone on the floor may point that out. You said you needed this much to keep the system going, Debbie made that motion, now, okay, that's okay. So just know where, I'm just saying, that's
Right, and the
fine.
new
Just say, well, we don't need this $100,000.
We just got $100,000 in
Right.
concessions.
Exactly, make
Exactly.
sure,
Retirement.
We'll just
From
say
the,
that.
Just
in
puts us
the
back to
last
where we
few
were.
days,
But
from
make
the
sure you-
retirement, from Council 94, and from the
Right.
administrators. The administrators alone saved us $40,000,
Make sure you
and
make
we
that.
voted on that Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
make
We'll
sure
say
you
all
make
those
that
things.
perfectly
In
clear.
retirement.
So,
Yeah, it is, it's important.
Because if you doubt that,
Right.
I'm telling you.
No,
that's
it's
right.
true.
so that actually comes very close. Mr. Fiore, do you have your calculator?
I anticipated that question. I did a quick calculation. That would be a 4% increase over the local contribution from last year, if that was your question, Mrs.
No, I wondered what the
No,
exact
what's the total-
savings were
the
from
total of the last
from the
three?
newest teacher
Oh, right.
retirement, the
Last three.
Council 94 foregoing their raise, and from the concessions that the administrators granted us.
It's over it.
106, $107,000
Do it right at the top.
approximately.
So that's why,
So that-
107,032.
See,
Okay, so there's,
no calculation.
that's good. Very good, Mr.
those were
Levin.
all in the
Past
last
week.
few days, the past week.
That's correct.
Okay,
So we would not be using those at this point then?
I mean,
No, we would
The items
use them to
back in.
balance our budget.
We would be back to the 300, instead of 319,000, we'd be
Yeah.
back to 320, yeah, we'll be back to 322.
but this is already taking all of those into account. And this
And
is
that's
based
4%,
on our number
Mr.
as
Fiore.
proposed.
Mhm.
At the
Mrs.
time.
Polish.
Polish's
number.
amendment was a 4% increase. in the local
$100,000
contribution.
less than that, and we have to add this to the bottom line.
I believe Mrs. Polish would like to speak.
Yep.
So amendment.
When I made my amendment, as you guys know, I've been attending all your hearings, and you had, a lot of that, was already online, it was already out there, in trying to calculate in my head. I also knew you had a couple of retirements that seemed like that was gonna be more, given everything that's coming at the State House, so that was kind of my thinking in coming up with that number. I certainly wasn't trying to, say that you didn't meet what you asked, but just knowing what had been going on from being here, I just felt that that was something that, that I felt was a compromise that could be worked in, given all the concessions that I knew that were worked in the budget and everything else that you did. So that's kind of how I came up with the math.
Thank you.
Did you guys vote?
No, we didn't.
No.
And it's, well, there's a discussion right now.
No, I didn't know, I'm sorry, I was just asking. Just asking.
I know, I'm
I
wrong
miss
very
the-
often,
I
but
miss
not
the
this
vote
time.
sometimes. Sorry.
All right. Any further discussion? No? Okay, so we have the motion, and the motion is to add financial
That the
town meeting
school committee
right now.
supports the
That
passage.
you will come out, the school committee, with
Support.
you as the spokesperson, will come out in favor of the Polish amendment.
So does that mean that we'll be publicly withdrawing our?
No.
You don't have to, because you don't get there.
We won't get back
First,
to that
which
one.
You
passes
don't, once the
is-
number's voted on, the debate ends.
Right, that would be the end
No
of the
other
school
numbers are
budget.
considered for the school department.
And if it should fail for some reason, we would certainly then support our original motion.
Is this satisfactory answer? Do you, okay? Okay, so all in favor? Against?
Could I just, I'd just like to add one thing,
Please.
if we could, for everybody who was gonna go to the meeting, and again, even if you didn't go Saturday, if you're a registered voter, you can come this Saturday. You just have to sign in like everybody else. I would ask, not only people who support the schools and support the town budget, but maybe they don't, they're on the other side of this issue. I would just ask that people behave appropriately, let everyone speak. It doesn't mean you can't be passionate about your viewpoint, but we really need to keep our emotions in check, because we do have to get business done. And when the emotion takes over, as we saw, business doesn't get taken care of. So I just ask everybody who will be attending if they could keep that in mind.
And to please stay to vote for the town budget.
And that's another point.
We don't want everyone to
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
after.
And for the
those-
levy.
And for the tax levy.
Right, because those folks that may just say, I'm here for the schools, and we
No.
appreciate the support. We also ask that they stay for the town, because they can, I believe they can take 3 amendments on the town side, and the town is in fiscal, they're having difficulties just like we are. And I believe, you know, folks should need to consider that to
We're all in this
stay,
together.
because we are a community,
And while
not separate entities.
when we have the school budget set, once that vote takes place, the town can't actually send out the tax bills and collect the money
The levy's
to
vote.
fund the budget until we have the tax levy vote, and that goes for the town budget as well. So the tax bills can't get sent out until we vote on the levy, and we do need a quorum to vote on the levy.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank, yeah.
Just
Anyone
informational
anyone has
purposes.
any other questions concerning this issue? No? Comments? Okay.
Mrs. Polish's budget is 2.5% above where we are this year, as opposed to the 2.9% that the school committee had previously voted.
Okay. So I guess we can move to the next item, which is...
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I did want to ask, since the tax assessor's letter explains things so clearly, and it is available online, Seconic Times online, under the heading "Talk of 22% Tiverton Tax Hike is Pure Fiction." It's available there, but I think it would be helpful for us also to post it on the Tiverton Schools website. And I was wondering, Mr. Rarick, if you would please contact Mr. Robert and ask his permission as a courtesy,
Sure.
if we could include that on the Tiverton School website.
I'll put it with the budget data, so everyone can see it.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll call.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is rates, raise
Yes,
the top.
as you recall, a couple months ago, back in January, the Race to the Top application was being prepared by the Department of Ed. It was submitted. We did sign off on it. We voted to support the Race to the Top application. Fortunately, I believe Rhode Island finished in 8th place, but not too far off the top. The top 2 states, Delaware and Tennessee, were chosen. Now, RIDE is currently in the process of resubmitting its application. I am recommending that the committee, once again, support the memorandum of understanding, which I have given you for your review. I've also provided you with updated changes that was provided to us to all the districts from RIDE, explaining the scope of work that the grant would do, but also the changes. So I put it before you again for your approval.
Do I have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Okay, now we have discussion.
I was pleased to find online or through the information that Mr. Rarick forwarded to us that the Commissioner has assured us that there will be no additional costs to districts
That's correct.
who participate. That was a concern of ours when we signed on in January, and we did add the stipulation that we participate as long as there were no additional costs
Correct.
that would burden the town. And the Commissioner has assured us that should there be some costs of participating not covered by the federal funds, that the state would compensate us for those costs.
And again, just for folks in the audience, the total amount for the grant is $75 million, where the last time the application was for $126 million.
And well, one of the potential reasons why Rhode Island did not get it, because there was no full support from the labor. Only very few districts actually supported that, and we got preliminary indication from our NEA Tiverton that they are not going to support it either, correct?
Yes, I've been notified by the president of NEA Tiverton that unless something changes regarding the situation in East Providence and Central Falls, it doesn't look like they'll be signing on.
Now, when you went to hearings about it, was there any discussion about involuntary transfers of highly effective teachers? I noticed in the wording, it seemed to imply that a highly effective teacher who worked in a larger district might be involuntarily transferred.
That's correct.
And that is a reality.
Well, that's how I interpreted it as when I read
Right.
it. I don't recall the commissioner at the meetings I have been to that specific question.
That
But
was-
it's in there, it's in the document. It implies that for those districts, it's a requirement that all children receive high-quality instruction. So within that, they need to give the locals the authority, or the locals need to be able to move those highly qualified teachers around. With that said, there's a provision in the new document that says all local contracts will be abided by. Nothing in this grant will supersede that. So I'm not quite sure how they reconcile it,
Right.
but that's a good question. I mean,
It's an open question.
it's an open
still.
question. That wouldn't apply to us
Right.
per se, because our schools are not in that situation. If we were in a Providence, Central Falls district, that would probably be more of a germane question. I'm sure those superintendents asked it already, but I'm not aware of what the response
But from the discussion which is taking place over there, the second part is going to be coming, which is rewarding teachers who are kind of highly effective, who achieve these levels.
Right, you gotta keep in mind, there's
So-
the Race to the Top grant, and in the grant, there's an evaluation component,
Yep.
which Mr. Burgundy, Mrs. Black, myself, and Mr. Fiore, there was a meeting over at the Hyatt in Newport a couple weeks ago, reiterating what the plan for that will be. Again, there is no evaluation instrument yet. It's to be devised by RIDE. They've brought in some high-powered consultants from across the country to develop it. They did tell us that the timeline is still September for implementation of 2011. So whether or not that timeline is still held, RIDE is holding to it, that something will evolve. I'm sure probably using the Race to the Top funds to help pay for the funding and research and all the work that needs to be done. There's a second component that it's not in the Race to the Top, but there's a second component that the commissioner is looking at is a compensation component or a package of how to reward teachers, and that's a separate. I'm sure she wouldn't say it's separate, but it runs concurrent to the evaluation instrument. The instrument will be developed separate from any evaluation packet or structure that's developed. Then that's going to be developed, and I don't know if it's going to be done simultaneously or not, but that compensation package or component will be unveiled at some point. Now, if it's going to be linked to the evaluation instrument, I'm not sure, because you have to have the funding for that, and there is a funding piece to it. I'm sure they got to work through all that, but that's really something that's in the pipeline that they really haven't defined. I think there's a meeting this month, but we haven't gotten the date yet.
Well, the evaluation piece, what they said to us is, because these questions were asked by many districts, that starting this fall, the evaluation piece will be in place and will be, the 1 year is going to be used to pilot this and basically adjust in some districts.
If they can come up with an evaluation instrument for this September to be piloted, that'd be very aggressive.
Well, they have
Maybe
some models which they are going to probably
Right, but they
adopt.
don't have, keep in mind, they don't have any
From scratch.
model that they've liked yet. So there's no, unless they've changed their view of what the model's gonna look like, and again, I'm not gonna
Well, we'll see
be
what's going on.
contradictory, I just find it very, their timeline regardless is aggressive.
Sure.
To say the
Very
least.
aggressive.
And that merit pay, or however you wanna phrase it, component, is gonna be on a separate track.
Yes, it is.
But 51% of these new teacher evaluations are going to be based on student achievement.
All teacher
Okay,
evaluations.
all teacher evaluations. will be based on student achievement data.
Yep, data points.
At this point, we only have that data for math, English, and science. And yet 100% of our teachers will need to be judged on student achievement
They
data.
have not, again, as we've talked about, they haven't adjusted for that yet.
Right, so they have no instrument to measure student growth over
If you-
time in art or music or our
Social studies.
career education.
World language.
Or world languages, and yet
Key.
they plan on rolling it all out in 2011.
Well,
Yes.
They did discuss all that.
Yes.
They discussed
Yeah,
That
it.
Answer
they
your
didn't
questions,
have that
yes.
tool. And they said, another thing they said, which was important, that they didn't want it all to come from the top down, they wanted to all work together. They talked about that. And addressing those very points, because library and all those kind of people, they have different measures.
But-
I believe their timeline for those teachers is 2013 to 14, because they will be developing assessments that RIDE will provide.
But you got to keep in mind, they use the term data points, and it's an inside term, meaning a variety of things. It's kneecap
It's
assessments,
not just one.
it's reading assessments that are done at the elementary level, at the high school level, it's end-of-year assessments, unit assessments. All this data is supposed to be, in theory, compiled at the local level and sent to the state. They're then going to create data points to say, has the child grown based on a variety of data points. They have not identified what those are yet. They may have in their minds what it would look like, but they haven't shared it with us. The data points most people are familiar with are the kneecap scores, SAT scores, AP scores, and then again, reading scores and science, which is only in its second year. So how they take all that, put it into a mixing bowl, and come up with an evaluation instrument will be very interesting to see, because it's going to be quite challenging for them to do that, and within a year's time.
And expensive, they said.
Well, that's why
I
the
hope
grants
Right.
comes into place, to pay for this.
Right, it's going to be very aggressive, to say the least.
It
Is
is.
there any variability on the local level to implement things that as a local?
You have a choice. You do your own,
Okay.
and it's got to be like what they develop,
Has to be approved by them. You
subject
can't
to
go-
their approval. So a district can go out on their own and spend X. The thing is, you don't know what they're thinking, because they're saying there's no model available. We looked at the beginning of the year, we've looked at a series of them, Minneapolis, Denver, we've had these conversations. And RIDE has said publicly, well, they're not quite good enough for us. So if you're a local district, even if you had a war chest of $250,000 or $500,000, which one do you pick? I mean, where do you begin? So my fellow superintendents we've all pulled back and said, let's see what you're gonna develop,
Yeah,
and then maybe we'll develop our own.
adjust.
They
But we
strongly-
need to see what the template will be.
Okay, I
Big-
wasn't sure how flexible it
big-
was. if it
Yeah.
allowed
It's
it.
flexible in the sense it's gotta mirror what they
It
do.
mirrors theirs, but you can.
They have a rubric that they've developed so that they will use to evaluate or to review someone's evaluation plan, and it's on the website. It's
Well, all
very,
that,
very
but all that
detailed.
is evaluation, that's just a concept. It's not the actual evaluation document. It's what they think should be in an instrument. It's nothing compared to what they have to build.
They actually strongly discouraged new
Absolutely.
district to attempt this, because they said it's just
Yeah,
so
it's
expensive.
kamikaze.
You might as well wait with this and leverage from what we are going to provide, so you can make your own adjustments. Well, because
And
the
that's
questions
part of
from some-
signing, going back to
just-
the.
I mean, there were some districts who actually have this instrument in place, which were concerned what's going to happen with what we have, and they said that's okay, as long as it's going to match the standards which we use to approve those.
So our whole committee is completely on hold at this point?
That's absolutely,
Until-
yeah, it's just, it would be a fool's errand, in my opinion,
Okay.
to pursue it until we see what they, at least give us some outline to follow, because we'd just be taking shots in the dark.
Now, how does that work with the strategic plan?
We have
Because
3
there's a
years,
timeline
we have a
there.
3-year window to
Okay.
complete it, so, depending on what RIDE does, hopefully we'll have something by the time it expires. Or the committee can add, a statement saying due to, and give a brief, executive summary of what's going on with the state.
Okay, that's-
And we can vote to extend it into another plan.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Are there any questions or comments from everyone else? Please.
I attended a meeting with Commissioner Gist about a week before the first Race to the Top decision was made, and I specifically directly asked her, as an educator, you know, you're asking us to sign on to this grant, and you want accountability, and accountability is a really important thing, especially in this day and age, and I agree with that, and she made some very valid points, but when I directly asked her, you're going to hold me accountable, as of October, 51% of my evaluation will be based on student performance. And the only thing that we have in terms of student performance are kneecap scores. I've taught in this district for 20 years. I'm a co-taught classroom. There's no model or plan that they have in place for co-taught classrooms. So how can you hold me accountable if you haven't given me the tools with which to be accountable? Don't worry, was her direct answer to me. Not this October. No, 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 no. We're looking down the line when the money becomes available. So a few minutes later, somebody else asked her another question from a different district. Going back to that, well, but the regents have passed this. And her answer to that person was just slightly different from how she answered me, and then she began to get aggravated. And she said, well, there's really no plan. We don't have a plan yet. We want to work on that with you. You're asking people to sign on to something that, for somebody like me, for example, I mean, I'll use myself as an example. After 2 years, I would lose my job. According to her, if we just use kneecap scores, and I get a different class or whose makeup is a little different than the year before, under the current parameters of what we have at our disposal, I would lose my job. And I don't see that I want to sign on to something for money that basically tells me, oh, your number, you're out the door. I don't think that's valid. And she wouldn't give a direct answer. What bothered me is she had no direct answers for the questions that we were asking, and they weren't petty questions. Well, how would you handle that? Well, we haven't decided yet. Well, how are you going to handle the co-taught classroom? We don't have a plan for that yet. Okay, well, what about K1 and 2 teachers where there's no testing? Well, we plan to have testing at every level. Kindergarten, really? Testing? How would that look? What would that look like exactly? No plan. And if I sound frustrated, I am, because I'm a big proponent of change and accountability. I'm tired of working really hard while others don't. I get that. And I agree with her on that and the basis of her argument. But when you're listening to her, there isn't a clear plan. She has the big ideas are over here, but there's no concrete, real plan for what's going to happen. And when you look at why we were denied, we were also denied because our state hasn't been a true committed supporter of education. That was another component of it. And there's a lot of pieces that are left out there unanswered that as an educator, and I think I've been a loyal educator, there's no answer. And it makes me very nervous to think that my future is dangling by that's to be developed yet. You know, and so to ask people to sign on, I think she needs to be clear about what her expectations are, not only in terms of teacher evaluation, but in terms of the district responsibility and school by school responsibility. Just one person, it's just my opinion, but I think there's a lot of good reason to be a little skeptical about signing on. Yes, it's a lot of money, and it would be wonderful, but
it looks like this is going to happen with
or
without money. So it's better to have money than not to have money. Two, it's my understanding that maybe, and obviously you have a better sense how this works. But it's my understanding that she did form a committee, and both unions in the state were invited to participate to provide the input. So to some extent, you will be shaping your own destiny in terms of, like you said, for someone who truly cares and who wants to deliver the value to students. You will be asked to participate in shaping that tool. And obviously we cannot imagine that someone is going to test kids in arts class. What are you going to do? So they spoke about some alternative ways of doing this. Like when you look right now, for example, at the graduation requirements, it's not all about just math and science. it is very, very comprehensive. And I guess something which was unthinkable 10 years ago, now everyone bought to it and to some extent shaped this into what it is right now. So I think buying into this is just buying into the concept as opposed to buying into the details and then quickly rushing to the table and say, I want to make sure that my input counts. And so far I have not seen, at least, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm only looking at this from what we are told by Wright and by the commissioner in his different meetings, that she extended the welcome to those who actually work in the trenches to actually participate and develop that particular tool.
You are correct. At the meeting I attended, that's how she began. The same thing that Mrs. Black. In the first 15 minutes, she drew me right in. And that's exactly how she began. I want to work together. But an hour and 15 minutes out, I'm going to be very honest with you. My impression was she wants to work. She wanted to work together as long as you saw things through her lens. There was anybody that expressed a different opinion or a different way of looking at things was really pretty much shot down and on to the next question. And I don't know, it could have just been the meeting that I attended. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but it was not a feeling of we're all going to sit at the table and kind of brainstorm and come up with it. It was we're all going to sit at the table so we can say the players are all there. But my personal opinion was not that was going to be a real team effort. But that, like I said, it was one impression. The questions, they were firing questions. It was very an animated discussion. But like I said, the whole tone changed. It kind of came 180 degrees around. And that's what I went because I didn't know enough about it. And I was trying to make an informed thought process out of it. And I did, you're right. She has extended that hand. And I hope that that's what happens.
Because to me it will be scary if people like you would not, because as I sense this is going to happen.
Right.
The scary part is that people like you would not express the concerns and opinions in the process of when this particular new approach actually to how the education is delivered is going to be shaped. And obviously she has this think tank, she has some very, very powerful consultants. These people have incredible credentials, and they have not done it just here, but they have done this all over the country. So she has the right people over there, so it's not like inventing the wheel. This is simply adapting for Rhode Island, for what I understand, what worked somewhere else. And these people, when we went with Mrs. Black, they had some very serious concern about the very same things which you are talking about, but they are working on those. So to some extent, I think the fear is that we would like to have all the answers right now. We want to know exactly what we are going to do. I want to know if I do what I do, am I still going to be excellent? And this is a natural fear for a professional. I don't envy you, because I can imagine this is like an earthquake in a lifetime of a professional. But I guess it's better to speak to that, to be at the table and speak to that.
You have to, part of all this is commitment by Ride, and if you read through the proposal and the data I sent you, Ride is committing to certain things as part of this grant and part of this memorandum of understanding. And one of the components, and one of the reasons why I recommended supporting it before, and I do now, is if you are a district that signs on, you will get, according to these documents and according to meetings I've been at, we will be at the table discussing these very questions. My opinion is, and I could be all wet, this is going to happen one way or the other.
Sure.
And I think it would be more important, A, to be at the table, and if there is funds coming to help us implement an evaluation instrument to improve professional development for all our teachers and for administrators as well, I think there's more positives. Am I skeptical about someone saying you're just going to, quote data points? And yeah, there's some questions that I have, and when I brought my questions up, I was told I was making things more difficult than need be. And if anyone who knows me, it's just the opposite. I try to simplify things to a T. So I understand what Denise is saying, because I've seen it myself, as far as, you know, if you question, you know, if you have questions that don't always go along with the quote, you know, party line, you know, there was some pushback. But I think overall, it would be good for the district and the state. I would rather be at least a voice at the table than just be out in the wilderness saying all the concerns we have, and they're gonna say, well, you need to sign on as a district. We're not gonna deal with you. So I think it's better to be, and what Denise is saying is
Sure.
very valid.
Absolutely.
But we need to be in the venues where these decisions are gonna be made, because obviously if we have the concerns here in Tiverton, they have the concerns in the powerhouse districts that carry the weight, the Providences, you know, the Cranstons, the Warwicks, as well as the South Kingstons, the East Greenwich. Everyone's gonna have these concerns, and they have, because at every meeting I've been at, they're coming up. So they have to be addressed, even the experts, as you just said, that the commissioner herself brought in, talked about these concerns. So they have to be addressed, and I guess the bigger question is, are you gonna be part of the discussion and try to shape it? And even if you are, I know some people would say, well, it's gonna work out again, it won't work out. Well, that's true, could, but I'd rather be part of it and make the best effort than not be. Plus, and it's also important to note, we're on the hook as well. This 2% growth thing that they talk about, or 2 bad years, it's just a matter of extrapolating for administrators. If you're a principal of a building that shows no growth in 2 years,
Sure.
well, you're the superintendent of a district that showed no growth for 2 years. See you later. It's not gonna be hard to extrapolate that one piece to everybody else, you know, in the pie. And quite frankly, we've had discussions about it internally, but again, I'd rather be there trying to work it out than not be.
It's always scary when someone is trying to measure something, whatever it is, whether you are running or walking. Am I going to be good enough? Even for people who just basically have nothing to fear. Every time someone applies a tool to what you are doing, it's intrusive. It's no matter what you do, and it's a natural fear. But why would you want to be there to actually say, listen, you cannot do this. I worked for 20 years. I'm an excellent teacher.
And I hope that there is an opportunity for the regular people to be there. I would welcome that opportunity to be there. Absolutely. I guess my point was just that it's hard to, sometimes when I'm listening to her, I want to believe what she's saying. I want to believe that the main point is really improvement, but sometimes the message for me falls short, and I'm left wondering, because there's such contradiction in what I've heard her say. But you're absolutely right. I would want to be at that table, absolutely, and Mr. Eric is right as well.
I'm not surprised, because I know that all the people who are professionals here, and great majority of those who we have nothing to fear, and if anything, you want to improve things as you work, trying to improve things on your own in your own classroom. And I think just overcoming this fear that someone is going to measure with an unknown tool what I'm doing.
I don't think initially when this was rolled out, how the classroom teacher would view it. And I'm not talking about the teacher, quote unquote, not doing their job. I'm talking about the people like Denise and Ginny over here and all our good teachers. When they hear something like that, it's naturally going to make you recoil. And then when you ask questions, well, what is it going to look like? And you don't get a concrete response. Yeah. You know, I had this again, but we have to get past that, I think, to get to the table. If the race to the top doesn't come in, I don't know what's going to happen to all of it. I get the feeling if that doesn't come in, I don't know how you implement it, because where does the cash come from to infuse it? Sure. So it could be a moot point if we don't get it, you know, the grant. So
Please.
Bill, you just hit one nail on the head. It's the fear of the unknown. We don't know. And I think all of us would agree that a new evaluation tool would be fabulous. It's only going to make us better. But when you hear your job is based on performance of children sitting in front of you, which you really have no control of their lives and what's going on in their home life and that type of thing, but you're going to be evaluated on that, but we don't know how, that's scary. It really is. Because like you said, we're professionals, we want to do the best, but it is a little nerve-wracking. And if they told us how we were going to be measured, we'd still be a little nervous, but we'd be okay. But that fear of the unknown.
But to move the whole state to something completely new,
It's going to be
it takes some vision,
It
and
does.
all the details have to be worked on later. And the fact that everyone is invited to participate is
We hope that
extremely
everybody does
encouraging.
that.
The fact
Sometime-
that they are not going to say, we are going to pull one from particular state and impose it on Rhode Island is encouraging. The fact that she hired the best people she could find to work on this with her, that's encouraging. So yeah, it's kind of scary, but let's try to participate and let's try to support it. And for me, when I look at NEA saying, well, this is because of East Providence or whatever it is, this is petty, this is childish. As professional, yes, I want more money, because if this is coming anyway, it's not a time to protest. There are different ways of protesting,
But
because
again-
the protest is, we don't want this money. This is not going to work for you or for the districts.
How the leadership of both unions at the state level operates sometimes always does not jive with what's
Oh,
going on.
100%. I understand
Thank
this.
you.
I'm not
Thank you.
naive. I know. I understand. I did not mean this to you. I'm talking about
So why
the
don't we-
organization, but not addressing you in this sense. I think we can move on. Am I right?
Move the question.
It's just important.
I don't want to sound like I'm in a financial town meeting, moving questions.
Can we take a hand vote?
Do you have a half hour?
Sorry for talking too much.
Those in
It's supposed to be a
favor?
short meeting. All those in favor? Okay. I'm sorry. I just feel very strongly about this, as you can probably.
Thank you for your insight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The next item was a request by Danielle to put on the agenda about our relationship that our high school, Tiverton High School, has with BCC. I provided you with a summary that Steve sent me back on April 28th. I've also given you my handbook, because Steve does reference it in one of his last bullets. So I'll turn it over to Danielle, and Steve and I will answer any questions that you may have.
I just initially brought this up because I had been told that we could bring students to BCC as portion of working with AP programs, particularly if we perhaps didn't have a particular program here. Because when we were looking at the numbers, there seemed to be quite a few kids that were doing independent studies. And as I was going through this, there's a lot of programs that we can participate in, but that didn't seem to be specifically covered as it had been presented to me. So I haven't been able to get a hold of BCC to get more information. I was bumped around through their voicemail system multiple times, and I have a call into somebody who was supposed to be returning my phone call. But as for having that specific information, that wasn't exactly as clear as I had hoped. Can you
What
elaborate?
specifically are you asking for?
Regarding AP classes?
Like art, some of our arts are independent studies.
You're
Actually,
wondering
art
if
is the only one that we do independent study with.
There was,
We have courses that sometimes are independent study, regular classroom courses. But
They don't have to be AP though. A
Right,
student can
that's
take.
correct.
okay. So if a student were to want to actually have a class, and that would be an AP level course, could they participate at BCC at this point?
A student can sit for an AP exam whenever they feel they've reached that academic level. So whether they took a course, a line of courses here, they did some independent study on their own, or happened to take a course at BCC, UMass Dartmouth, CCRI, Johnson and Wales, and they wanted to sit for an AP exam here, they could.
But I don't believe to be considered an advanced placement program for approval, you have to have a set curriculum that we have for the courses that we offer that are approved by the college board. And that's to get credit. That is, if you pass the test with a 3 or higher, most schools, and some don't take a 3, but they take only a 4 or a 5 for college credit. But any child can take the AP test.
Right.
But to get credit for the course, you need to be considered an AP course. You have to meet the criteria set forward by the board, college board. So I'm not, and I don't want to speak to what BCC offers. It's possible maybe some of their courses are aligned, but any child, you don't have to be an AP, I'll use U.S. history. You could be a regular U.S. history student and still take the AP test. Anybody can take an AP test. You just have to pay the fee. But if you want the credit for taking an advanced placement course, that's a separate question. So I guess I don't know what BCC offers. We do have, as Steve said, we have courses that we align with BCC, that if you go to BCC, you can get credit. You don't have to take them. You know, you already get credit for it. But as far as AP goes, I think it would probably be best to hear from, I guess, GCC.
An AP class is a class that you take in a high school that covers college-level curriculum. That's different from taking a course at BCC or another college and getting college credit that you may transfer to other institutions. Those classes you take at BCC are not AP classes.
It was
AP
presented to
classes
me
take
that
place
they
in the
were
high school.
offering AP classes because they were working with high school students coming in, particularly in the summer. How accurate that statement is, I don't know. I haven't gotten feedback back yet.
When we've had the, Steve could speak to it better than I. When we've had the folks from BCC come over, to my knowledge, that has never been brought to our attention. Steve, has it?
No, but actually, I'm gonna be curious and I'm gonna look into it. But again, I'll go back to if we do not offer an AP course here, and right now we offer 8, of which the students are taking exams right now, and students can undertake their own program of study, whether it's to expand an honors level course here, seek self-interest. We've had students take AP courses and pass them and not have any exposure here or at a local college level because of their level of intelligence, home exposure, and just natural course of education.
The AP course itself is of a freshman year or sophomore year level curriculum. So if you pass that test and you take that course in a high school, you get, you know, if it's U.S. history and you need a U.S. history requirement, that gets waived right away because of the rigor that the child has. If they offer something to BCC that we don't, and it's advanced, you know, approved by the college board and geared to take the test, I don't see why they, you know, that's just something we're not aware of, if that's the case.
For information, Bristol Community College is an open campus. Anyone that applies can go there. Even students who may not be ready for college, the college has programs to get them up to speed, so they could take a college course. There's high school students in most of the courses that are 3:30 or 4 o'clock and after at BCC. BCC also sends professors into the 2 high schools next to it to teach after school college courses with college credits attached to them in those 2 high schools. And it's a pretty active program. I sit on the Senate at BCC, and for those of you who don't know what a Senate does in the college, if you want to communicate with the president of the college, you put in a grievance and you go up the grievance ladder, and now you can communicate with the president. The Senate has the president's ear. We meet once a month to talk about issues. One of our issues was some of the students we get in our courses really weren't prepared for the rigor of a college course, and is a disservice to a student to set them up to fail. And we started looking at trying to have the administration set up rules But the administration just wants to leave it open to anyone that wants to come, and they leave it back to the high school that's sending them to make sure that they have vetted that student to make sure they'll be able to handle a college level course.
Thank you.
Just to add to this discussion, that's one venue to explore in terms of if we need some advanced course, for example, we don't have, let's say, something in the lab-based physics for science majors. And I know the number of students might be relatively small who might be interested in something like this, but still, I think to have a specific person who's going to teach few kids, maybe again by talking to them, seeing if they can schedule such courses in a manner that students could do it within their schedule. Very often what happens is, and I know the same happens at my place at UMass Dartmouth, that if they don't understand the needs of the high schools, that actually there's going to be an interest over there, they schedule this course like at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, and there's no high school student who can actually take these courses. So basically talking to them might open additional opportunities for the students, because if this is going to happen, let's say something is scheduled at 3 or even in the afternoons, then our students could actually take these kind of courses. And
But they're open to courses right now in the tech prep program, of which we have 4 or 5 courses directly aligned with BCC, for which if they take them here, they'll carry those credits. Also, if there's openings in courses after 4 o'clock or on Saturdays, they can take them for free as long as they've been accepted into the tech prep program. One of the other things we have to realize with the new high school graduation requirements, mandates in the state of Rhode Island, there have been an awful lot of new requirements put on our students, whether it's to complete more work, whether it's to complete more areas of proficiency in arts and technology, a 4th year of math, to complete a senior project in their senior year. And you know, this is a lot of the local colleges are not, on their end, are not totally aware of the changes that we've had to undergo, massive, significant changes that impact our kids. And our kids are very, very busy through their high school career. And I've seen actually probably a drop-off in the opportunities for kids for dual enrollment, especially in the tech prep program, and also with the program that we share with Johnson & Wales. And I think it's because of our new high school graduation program requirements that the kids have so much work to do here with proficiencies and with common assessments, kneecap preparation, senior projects. They've got busy lives just completing their high school cycle here. And I'm not saying that student who doesn't have the opportunity here shouldn't look, and we shouldn't help support them. Working for individual students is, I think, what we're all about. And if we can find a way to schedule it for kids, whether it's completing something that they just need for an intervention to get through a requirement, or at a level in AP that we don't offer here individually, then I think we would pursue that, obviously.
because if we look, for example, I'll use a specific example. Let's say we had a potential to have advanced placement course in chemistry. Unfortunately, this course cannot be offered because there's very few students who sign up for this. So basically, this opportunity is gone for these students. Now, if these students apply to some very high-ranked universities, they are not going to be competitive with students. So basically, I know we are a very small school. We have very limited resources. We are even squeezed more here. So the question is, how do we not penalize kids who actually could succeed, and potentially providing some additional venues, working with the colleges, saying, well, based on what we see, we cannot run advanced placement chemistry. You have a chemistry course, because obviously all these universities and BCC has it too. Could you please schedule this in times when our students could take it. So some of these kids who sign for these courses, they will say, I will drive over there at 4 o'clock, but it has to be at 4 o'clock, or at least at 3 o'clock, but not at 1 o'clock, because I cannot
I mean, I
skip
think
two
if that
classes
was,
here.
I think if that was paramount to what a student wanted to do for their future, for their potential to be successful, I think we would try to work around that student schedule, if that was a priority. You know, we've done it for individual students, you know, when it comes down to music and arts. Those students, for example, who want to pursue those areas, and we back up their schedule in the other areas. Something does have to give, and we've seen that. For the last, something has to give. But if that, you know, if the student and the parent profess, you know, such a desire, then we could build a program from that point. And we would certainly look into where those course offerings are. Many of them are starting to be offered online. There are AP opportunities online as
Virtual
well.
high school.
Just thinking that this is a headache for you, obviously you might be willing to do that, but if you work with this, I can imagine if you have 4 individual students with AP chemistry now, work on individual schedule for them when they take some other subjects.
we do that.
But
We do that.
We do that, but
We
you
do
gotta
that.
keep in mind, even if the courses are offered at whether it's UMass Dartmouth, URI, BRIC, BCC, there's a cost associated. This isn't for the bubble, for free.
Sure.
So parents would have to, even if you got the scheduling right, and the college or university is gonna say, well, how many kids can you promise me? Or can you estimate for that slot? And we're gonna go, wow, we got 3 or 4, maybe. And you know, and there's a cost associated, and I just know lump sums from my kid, my own son's college, what a per course would be, probably around $1,000, give or take, maybe 700, depending on the course. And for some families, it's cost prohibitive, even if they want, you know, I want my child to take that chem course,
Yeah.
you know, where we can offer it, and we try to offer, that's why we try to offer as many as we
Yeah,
can,
I know.
because of the cost that's associated, you know, with that.
Right, because if you take an AP class here, the only cost is the cost of the exam. And for instance, where my oldest daughter is attending college, she gets college credit for a 5 on any AP exam, and she has 3 5s, and she's now looking into whether she can graduate a semester early. That's significant financial savings for the investment of $80 per exam.
Absolutely.
So for $240, she may be able to save half a year's tuition.
Parents like that.
And that's what that's right.
Believe me, I know.
Would you
I was
like
wondering
this
too,
back
do
on
you
another
have
agenda?
to offer
I'll
a
bring it
certain
back up when I
amount of
have a bit
AP
more information and
courses
ask
for
Mr. Gazette has
accreditation?
something that.
Wasn't sure how that worked as a high school.
There's not a set number, no, that I'm aware of. They like to see as many as possible. And when I was principal, and Steve, when he followed me, we not only kept, but we tried to expand what we offered for advanced placement, but there's no set number that I'm aware of. Because most cases, we only offer 1 singleton, one course, maybe 2 of something, depending
And
on.
about the AP chemistry, my daughter was going to take that next year, apparently can't either, but I wouldn't encourage her to take the course outside of here, because she's in the band, she's playing like 3 sports a year, she has a full schedule here, she stays up till like 3 in the morning almost every night as it is. Then in addition to taking a college course at a school where she would have to drive in
That's
the
a good
hours,
point.
and would they use the book, or would it just be the college course? Because the AP courses at the high school aren't just an advanced chemistry course, they're also using a book that's going to help them to do the test
Sure.
as well. I don't think a college will use an AP book, they'll use their college level chemistry book. So although she may take that course and pass that test, but you have to think about that's beyond her busy schedule as it is already. And I might say to her, maybe when we do that in the summer or some other time, but not during the school year, it would be too much, I think, for her.
I'd love to have the budget flexibility to offer many more AP courses.
Oh, I know you would. I know, it's,
We
that's
can't
what I'm
think
saying.
we- there's no more amendments on the
We are
floor.
squeezed more, we are squeezed more and more.
We
And-
should have said 30 million.
You know, classical
Just
high
polish
school, I
out
was
of
at
the
an
way.
EAS meeting, they're gonna be up to 20.
Sure.
So I know we have to balance here, and I hope everybody realizes that, but if the opportunity for more money for AP course is gonna be an initiative, I'd certainly support it.
I can imagine. Absolutely. I know we do a lot with very, very little. So,
Just under
thank you, Mr. Smelter,
announcements.
for bringing it up so we can.
I'm sorry. Just on announcements, I have a petition that I provided the committee. It was given to me prior to the town financial meeting. It was signed by Tiverton students to let you know, and I'll forward a copy to the council, how they feel about keeping our strings and chorus program. So I just
Has anybody
provided-
counted how many signatures are here?
I have not counted them, no.
Well, we certainly have incredible music program. Here's my announcement.
There's more people who signed it than are possibly in the program.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
I have another announcement here. This high school band, under the leadership of Mr. Alves, went to Pennsylvania to participate in the contests over there, and it's not surprising. Here's the results. The first place superior rating for the marching band, first place superior rating for jazz band, first place excellent rating for concert band, overall first place concert band, Michael Casey Best Individual Solo Award, and the Tiverton High School, as we are not surprised with our Tigers, they got also the Spirit Award for the whole event. So this is incredible. And obviously, thank you, Mr. Alves, for leading them and setting up super high standards like many teachers do. And obviously, we might not see what happens in the classroom when kids do math and physics. This is something which is much more visible to the community. And I know that this is not an exception to what we do.
And just a reminder, May 15th, this Saturday,
Correct.
8 p.m.
Be there.
I have two
Please.
short announcements. Yesterday I met with a representative from the Rhode Island Department of Education and Denise Lefebvre, she's our mentoring coordinator, and they did their annual review of our mentoring program, and once again we're meeting all of the criteria, so it was a very successful review. I showed her the action steps that we had developed for strategic planning, and as with the teacher evaluation piece, she's suggesting that we hold off on that because it will be connected to the teacher induction piece of the teacher evaluation. But all in all, it was good news, and I'm very grateful to the work that Mrs. Lefebvre has done, and also the teachers who participate in the mentoring program. And one final note, on May 13th, this Thursday, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at Ranger School, we have our very first kindergarten orientation for families. It's Let's Get Ready for Kindergarten.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating. So I guess if there's no other questions, comments, anyone else has anything? No? Thank you. So take a motion to adjourn. No.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Denise, don't forget, we got tomorrow.